What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. We're here breaking down this NFC East Monday Night Football Showdown slate. We have the Dallas Cowboys taking on the New York Giants in what doesn't look like the greatest game on paper, only a 39-point over-under, although 1-point spread should indicate that this is pretty back and forth for the most part. It seems like a lot of times where these games really aren't expected to do too much, they don't end up being too bad. So we'll see what happens, but I will not get my expectations too high when the quarterback battle is going to be Cooper Rush and Daniel Jones. But anyway, if you're brand new here, my name is Chris Pennell. I break down NASCAR and NFL DFS each and every single week on this channel. You'll also find me over on Stochastic when I'm in season doing NASCAR and baseball live before lock shows and writing articles over on the website. And if you do end up enjoying today's free content, the only thing I ask in return is you can just drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you're brand new, and feel free to leave a comment down below saying whatever you want to say because I cannot control you. And don't forget to check out the sponsor of the show, Prize Picks. They do make these videos possible. And as of right now, if you're a new signee over on the site, you can use promo code CPEN to take advantage of the instant deposit match bonus up to $100. It is free money. Use it to advantage over to PrizePicks.com, or you can use the link down below. But with that being said, that'll be it for the plug. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. And as always, we will start with the quarterback position. And if you want access to the sheets, link is down below in the description for that. Projections, optimizer, ownership projections, all that fun stuff. We do have the NBA starting soon, which I do cover daily with projections that are updated to until lock. But anyway, we have an amazing quarterback battle here between Cooper Rush and Daniel Jones. I'm not sure it gets much better than this. And I feel like it's kind of weird that Cooper Rush is nearly $10,000, but we just had a showdown slate with Mitch Trubisky and Jacoby Brissett, and they were in the 8K range. I'm not really sure what makes Cooper Rush a lot better than those guys, but got to deal with the slate that we are given. They're on the road in New York here, only a 39.5-point over-under, 19.25 team total here for the Cowboys. Hard to get excited about Cooper Rush. I mean, he's not a great quarterback. We know that. Only 6 yards per attempt in limited time this year. The Giants are 21st DVA versus the pass and 14th versus quarterbacks. Just mediocrity across the board for Cooper Rush. Since the showdown slate, he's a quarterback below 10K. Yeah, he's going to fill in some lineups. I think if you're playing cash games, it makes sense to get into the flex spot, but by no means does he feel like an absolute must play. But he does have some good weapons to get the ball to. You have CeeDee Lamb and Noah Brown, who was pretty good last week. And then out of the backfield, you have Tony Pollard. Zeke's not really much these days, but he's at least there. And Dalton Schultz. So Rush, fine option, but I'm not rushing to go play him. Sorry for the bad joke. Daniel Jones, $9,400. If I had to pick between the two, I would certainly side with Jones. He at least presents some rushing upside, but passing upside has not been great so far this year. Only averaging 24.5 passing attempts per game. Under 200 passing yards, under 2 touchdowns. The nice thing here is the 81% completion percentage and 20 rushing yards per game with 4 designed runs. So there's always some rushing upside mixed in, and since he's cheaper than Cooper Rush, I feel like it should be a bit flip-flopped. And the Giants do have the slightly higher implied team total. Now, I'm going to be very heavy on Saquon Barkley, but he's still involved in the passing game where these guys can correlate well enough. And while the Cowboys have been kind of tough versus fantasy quarterbacks this year, I can't really worry about matchups too much for this game because it's a showdown, so I can't get too picky. So yes, I like both, but if I had to pick between the two, Daniel Jones would be my guy, especially with the rushing upside, which does make him at least viable in the captain spot. And moving on over to our lineup, not going to do anything special here. I'm not going to put one of the quarterbacks in the captain spot for this build. Just going to throw them both in the flex spot and move on from there. That leaves us just under $8,000 left per player, which you got to keep in mind. Probably going to be spending a pretty penny for Saquon Barkley in the captain spot, so we're definitely going to have to find some value. But as we talk through this, I think we can find enough to make that work. And then moving over to the running back position, we have the home of the highest owned play on the entire slate, bar none. It's going to be Saquon Barkley here, coming in just under $12,000 on DraftKings and just under $18K over in the captain spot. But had a great start to the year in week 1. Didn't have a great week 2, but the volume was still there. He's playing over 80% of the snaps. He's healthy. Matt Breida gets in like 15-20% of the snaps, but it's nothing significant as far as just usage. So it's going to be pretty much the Saquon Barkley show. And on a slate where there's not that many great fantasy options, we have a guy here that's going to get you 20 plus touches, with a little portion of that being through the air. We have a 20.75% target share through 2 weeks. We're dealing with some very small sample sizes, but Barkley, a lot of these numbers are really inflated from what he did in week 1. But the volume's there, the talent's there, the offense just isn't great. I don't think these numbers are going to sustain throughout the season. But on a slate like this, yeah, I'm going to have a lot of Barkley. I mean, if you want to lock button him, I get it. It's just really a matter of how much do you want to captain Barkley compared to just in general. I think he's going to come in probably close to 20-30% in the captain spot, and I don't think I'd really mind being overweight on that. And then moving on to the Cowboys, split backfield here with Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. They're basically the same price point. Zeke is obviously, he's past his prime. He doesn't look that great on the field ever. Tony Pollard is the much better back here, although the numbers so far this year doesn't really look that great for Pollard. But he's more dynamic, he's more explosive, and if you're just watching the games, he definitely looks a lot better. Zeke's getting 12.5 carries per game, Tony Pollard at 7.5. And he's getting more work in the passing game as well with 3 catches per game on 4.5 targets compared to 2 at 1 catch for Zeke. So if I had to pick between the two, I think Zeke comes in higher owned. He's got the better name value. But if that's going to be the case, I'd rather get the Tony Pollard. I think there's just more chance for explosive plays. Although just know, if we get around the 5-yard line, 1-yard line, I mean, there's a decent chance Zeke could probably plunge into the end zone. So you do have to account for that. And if there's not going to be that many fantasy points scored in this slate, the touchdown could make him a viable option. So while I don't like playing Zeke, you just have to at least consider because of the touchdown upside for him. And then if you're looking at the snap counts, in week 1, it was pretty split. It was around 55% for both backs. But then in week 2, we saw Zeke get in nearly 70% of the snaps. Meanwhile, Tony Pollard was around 40%. But assuming this is more of a split, I feel like I'd rather take my chances with the more dynamic back in Tony Pollard. And moving over to our lineup, I'm not sure if I'm going to get to the Cowboys back in the single entry-ish build. Please don't copy and paste this. I just want to see what fits. But we're going to plug in Barkley, and we're going to go top dollar here in the captain spot. I realize it's going to be chalky if you're playing tournaments. Yeah, I get it if you want to get different. I'm definitely going to have lineups that do not include Saquon Barkley in the captain spot or MVP spot over on FanDuel. Although on FanDuel, it's going to be a little tougher to get away from because of how their pricing system works, and you just need the top raw projected player in there most of the time. So Barkley, I'll have a lot of in the MVP spot. DraftKings, it gets a little bit different, but if we plug him in the captain spot here, we're sitting at just under $4,500 per player, which honestly isn't that bad. We got 2 quarterbacks in, and we have the best projection play on the slate in the captain spot. Always enough value to make $4,500 work with 3 players. I mean, obviously, I don't think we can get the CeeDee Lamb or Zeke in this kind of lineup, but there's enough value to get some mid-range players here. And moving on to the wide receivers, we will start with the Dallas Cowboys group first, which consists of CeeDee Lamb at $10,200, Michael Gallup looking like he might make his 2022 season debut at $7,400, although he is still questionable, although it sounds like he should be playing. Noah Brown at $6,800, and then just a bunch of guys that you're probably not going to have interest in. So we'll pretty much stop after Noah Brown. Yes, if you want to filter in a couple of these guys, maybe they see the field and catch a pass, but I don't really think they're worth talking about. It's really only if you're building 150 lineups. But anyway, I really think the only thing that gets shaken up this week is that Michael Gallup's return is going to hurt a guy like Noah Brown, although I'm not entirely sure how much Gallup will end up seeing. Is he going to be fully good to go? It's a wait-and-see approach. He is a talented wide receiver, though. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb's the guy you're going to want to get to the most, 10 targets per game this year. Small sample size, but 31% target share. In their 40% market share of the team's air yards. Michael Gallup, obviously, we got nothing to work with. And then Noah Brown's been good as well with Cooper Rush. 7 targets per game, half a touchdown, 5 catches, and nearly 80 receiving yards. So I am fine with any of these guys. And Michael Gallup might be kind of tough to get to making a season debut. So I'll probably be more of a wait-and-see approach on that. Probably have less than 20% exposure. But Noah Brown, CeeDee Lamb, fine in my eyes. Although it is kind of tough to pay that much money for Lamb with a guy like Cooper Rush under center. If it was Dak Prescott, it's a different story. So I would just have limited expectations for Lamb. And then moving on to the Giants, nothing too exciting here. We have Sterling Shepard at $7,600. Kenny Galladay, the ghost of Kenny Galladay, I should say, $6,200. Then Richie James Jr. $5,400, and David Sills, the 5th, at $5,000. Now again, there's a couple stragglers down there. Kadarius Toney is doubtful for this game, so I think we can just assume that he is going to be out. Although it's not like he gave us much production so far this year anyway, and also just really not playing much either. But Sills, he put in over 90% of the snaps last week. Sterling Shepard plays nearly the entire game. Richie James, I believe, saw around 40-50% of the snaps, although with Kadarius Toney completely out, maybe 3 more snaps do open up there. But there was really 3 main guys I care about with Shepard, Sills, and Richie James, although I think Richie James, probably the best play of the group once you factor in the price tag here, because he's had a role in this offense this season, averaging 5.5 targets per game on a near 23% target share, also a 36% market share of the team's air yards. So if I had to pick one receiver from this team, I think Richie James is probably the guy I will end up getting to. Sterling Shepard has very similar numbers to Richie James, but he's also at nearly $8,000 compared to $5,000. So I think just James does come in as one of the better value plays on the slate. And not like as a pure punt option, but in the mid-range, he is going to project out quite well for me. Still plays a lot, but the production just doesn't do too much. I mean, 12.5% target share, 2 targets per game. I know dealing with some very small sample sizes, but James does seem like the guy to get to relative to the price point here. Moving back over to our lineup, the only thing I feel comfortable doing right now is I'm just going to plug in Richie James. I like the price point a lot, I like the volume we've seen so far, and obviously Kadarius Toney being out, even though he's really nothing in the offense these days anyway. It still makes snap counts a little bit more safer. So once you plug in James, just under $4,000, which it should be pretty easy to do. We're talking kicker category and just take one value guy, and yeah, it's a pretty easy fit. And moving over to tight end, if Dalton Schultz does not play, this is one ugly position, although that would open up a value punt at $200, which does make our lineups a lot more flexible. But anyway, we'll start with the Cowboys here first. Schultz, he's the big question mark here. We do not know if he's going to play. Didn't really get much information from Saturday. So we'll see. Wait and see approach. If he plays, not that interested at $64, probably has to score a touchdown to be viable. But if he is out, I wish him the best of health, but I would appreciate if he is out for this game so we can make some more fun lineups. Jake Ferguson, he played a good chunk of snaps last week, and he would really be the lone tight end here getting significant work, and he's only $200. So while we don't really have any stats from him at all, he'll be on the field and he's free. I think it's worth a flyer too if he can catch a couple of balls. And then the Giants side of things, just a bunch of ugliness here. We have Daniel Bellinger at $4,400. He's the lead guy, not really getting much production, half a target per game on a 3% target share. We have Tanner Hudson seeing snaps at $1,600. He's seeing a target and a half per game on a 9% target share. And then Miriak, I believe is his name, Chris Miriak here. He's seeing half a target per game on under a 2% target share. So yeah, I wouldn't really get your hopes up on any of these Giants tight ends. If they catch a touchdown, sure, that's value, but you better hope they catch a touchdown on their one lone target, really, for the most part. And that's not really something I'm willing to bank on. Because if Schultz is out, I mean, I'll take my chance with the Ferguson, who's much cheaper. And then moving on to the defenses, they're certainly going to be playable in a 39.5 point total. Although we did say the same thing about the Browns and Steelers game. And yes, I know the Browns at the end of the game did get bailed out because they scored the touchdown. I still think they ended up with 10 points, which obviously that's a fine day from your defense. If your defense gets you 10 points, a 3 to 4K price point, that's fine. But a lot of times for these to really work out, they need to get a touchdown. Although I could see plenty of sacks here. I could see turnovers. So they're certainly viable, and especially if it's only going to be 20 points scored for each team or right around there, according to Vegas. But you got to be careful with defenses. People like to overplay them a bit. I'm never really a fan of playing them in the captain spot whatsoever. You have to pretty much get that touchdown or just any of the offensive pieces to be absolutely trashed during the game. But both are fine. I prefer the Giants. They're a little bit cheaper. And by a little bit, I mean $800. And as you can see here, I have them projected a little bit better. So the Giants they'll pop into lineups for sure. And I think they're viable. Cowboys are okay, but kind of expensive for being the underdog here. And I'll have more exposure to Giants players anyway, at least I think. Then moving on to the kickers, they're fine. If they hit their field goals, they hit their field goals. They become fine value plays. I would prefer Graham Gano. I just think the Giants are going to put up more points. But really, I have them projected just about the same. It all comes down if they hit their field goals or not. I always call kickers fine cash plays in the flex spot, but I don't captain them at all. Moving back over to the lineup, we have just under 4K left. So I think maybe plugging in the Giants defense, which doesn't project bad for me at all, might not be a bad move. That gives me just about $4,000, and that works actually with Graham Gano here. So we have Saquon Barkley in the captain, Rush, I believe, as our lone Cowboy, then Jones, James, Giants, and Graham Gano. Please don't copy and paste this. I'm playing 150 lineups. I'm not sure which one I like the most, but I don't think that looks too bad. And as I always do, I just want to run the optimizer here. No group settings, no randomness, nothing like that. If you are building 150, and if you do want access to the optimizer, I use it every Showdown slate. Link is down below in the description for that. But we're just going to crunch 150 here, see who pops the most with projections without changing any of the settings or anything. And we did finally get 152 crunch here, so let me pull up the players that are popping the most. No surprise here. Saquon Barkley, 65% of the time in the flex spot. Wouldn't be surprised if he's almost at 100% exposure here. Trying to find him in the captain spot, 35%. So he actually popped in 100% of the builds. And honestly, I don't think that's a terrible idea on this slate. Richie James popping a lot. Not really surprised by that. Daniel Jones, Giants defense getting a lot of love. I would not personally play that much, but in this crunch, it did pop in quite a bit. A little bit less Cooper Rush than Daniel Jones, but that makes sense to me. So not really too surprised about anything here. But if you are someone that does build many lineups, make sure you have your groups, your settings, and your randomness and all in order, because that's really the best way to approach these Showdown slates. But with that being said, I wish you all the best of luck. I know it's not the most exciting game on paper, but with DFS and Showdown, we can make this a little bit more interesting for ourselves. So if you did enjoy, make sure you leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you're brand new, and if you want to check out the extra content, link is down below in the description for that. But I wish you all the best of luck, and I'll see you all next time.